Imagine being told that the machine that would break the deadlock of the most devastating war in human history was inspired by a farm tractor. This is the story of how desperation, genius, and one politician's reckless gamble created the most revolutionary weapon of the 20th century. By early 1915, the Western Front had become the most terrifying place on Earth. 475 miles of trenches, stretching from the Swiss border to the English Channel. Two armies, staring at each other across a strip of mud and barbed wire called No Man's Land. And every single day, 10,000 men were dying, for zero ground gained. The machine gun had made the old way of fighting infantry charges across open ground suicidal. A single machine gun could cut down an entire battalion in minutes. The mathematics were brutal. The attacker always lost. And they tried everything. Armoured shields. Machine gun rounds punched straight through, tunneling under enemy lines. The other side started countermining. Entire tunnels collapsed with men still inside. Poison gas, unpredictable. The wind shifts, your own troops choke. More artillery, you think that will work. But here's the cruel irony. The more shells you fire, the more craters you create. And those craters make it impossible for your own infantry to advance across the ground you just destroyed. So here's the question that nobody could answer. How do you get men across 250 yards of open ground, under constant machine gun fire, over trenches, mud, and barbed wire alive? The answer came from the most unlikely place. Not the army, the navy. In February 1915, the First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Spencer Churchill, did something extraordinary. He took money from the Royal Navy's budget and secretly funded a project to build a land-going warship. Think about that for a second. The Navy paying for a weapon that would fight on land. Churchill called it the Landship Committee, and he did it because the Army's top generals had already said no. The inspiration came from California. The Holt Manufacturing Company had built a tractor that used continuous tracks instead of wheels, originally designed to work on soft farmland without sinking. Someone at the Admiralty looked at those tracks and thought, what if we wrap those around an armoured box? By August 1915, the first prototype rolled out of William Foster and Company in Lincoln, England. They called it Little Willie, and it was terrible. 14 tons, a Daimler 105 horsepower engine, top speed 2 miles per hour. Your grandmother walks faster. But the real problem, it couldn't cross a trench, and when it reached a gap wider than about 4 feet, it just fell in, back to the drawing board. And then someone had the idea that changed everything. Instead of putting tracks underneath a box, what if you wrap the tracks around the entire body? The rhomboid shape. That's what makes the Mark I look so distinctive, so alien. Little Willie could cross a 4-foot gap. The new design, 9 feet. Let's take this thing apart, piece by piece. The Mark I, the world's first combat tank, and a death trap on tracks. 32 feet 6 inches long, longer than a London bus. 13 feet 9 inches wide with the sponsons attached. 8 feet tall, 28 tons of steel, engine and ammunition. The armour, 6 to 12 millimeters, enough to stop a standard rifle round, but not enough to stop a dedicated armour-piercing bullet, and certainly not enough to stop artillery. The Mark I came in 2 variants, and yes, they really called them male and female. The male carried 2 6-pounder quick-firing naval guns, 1 in each sponson, plus 4 Hotchkiss machine guns. This was your bunker buster, your trench clearer. The female, 5 Vickers machine guns, no cannon, designed to protect the males from enemy infantry. To suppress machine gun nests, you needed both, working together. Now, the heart of the beast. A Daimler Knight, 6-cylinder sleeve valve engine, 105 horsepower, mounted right in the middle of the tank, with no partition between the engine and the crew. That meant everything. The engine produced heat, noise, carbon monoxide fumes went directly into the crew compartment. Top speed 3.7 miles per hour, walking pace, range 23 miles before something broke. And steering, a nightmare. There was no steering wheel. To turn you had to brake one track while the other kept running. This required 2 dedicated crew members, the gearsman. The commander would signal which way to turn using hand signals, because you couldn't hear anything over the engine. 8 men, sealed inside a steel box. Temperature 50 degrees Celsius, hotter than the Sahara. Ventilation none. Carbon monoxide poisoning was common. Men would pass out mid-battle. Visibility, tiny slits in the armour, a few inches wide. That's your entire view of the battlefield. Communication, no radio, no intercom. You communicated by hand signals, or by hitting the hull with a spanner, or not at all. And there was zero suspension. Every bump, every crater, every piece of debris. You felt all of it. Broken bones were routine. September 15th, 1916. The Battle of the Somme. 49 tanks were assigned to the attack. Only 32 made it to the start line. The rest broke down on the way. Of those 32, only 9 actually advanced with the infantry. Breakdowns, ditching, getting stuck in craters. The Mark I was fragile. It was slow. It was unreliable. But those 9 tanks that made it, they changed everything. German soldiers heard a sound, a grinding, a roaring, getting louder. And then, over the ridge. This thing, this metal monster, bullets bouncing off its skin, crushing barbed wire, rolling over trenches like they weren't there. One German soldier wrote simply, "The devil is coming." They had never seen anything like it, because nothing like it had ever existed. The results were mixed. Most tanks broke down. The force was too small, but Field Marshal Douglas Haig saw the potential. His response: "Whatever happens, we must have more tanks." And he got them. Within a year, Britain ordered over 1,000 improved tanks, the Mark II, the Mark III, the Mark IV, each one better, each one deadlier, each one closer to breaking the deadlock of the Western Front. The Mark I wasn't a good tank. It was slow, unreliable, and hellish to crew. But it was the first, and without it none of what came after would exist. In our next episode, we're going to take the Mark I completely apart. Every bolt, every rivet, every inch of armour. The most detailed cutaway breakdown you've ever seen. If you want to see that, hit subscribe and the bell. It helps more than you know. We are Tactics and Thunder, and this is where it all began.